Hello, welcome back to my channel. So today I just wanted to kind of go over the beginning with like the visions and the messages that I received. I know some people were like wondering how it started or why I felt like my dreams were prophetic or like meaning something, because I see a lot of people say, oh, dreams are just dreams. Well, I was getting not just dreams, but I was getting visions and messages as well, like hearing words spoken. So, like I said, this all kind of, I started getting visions on the 4th of August, and I have the stuff that I'll put up here as well, but one of them was I had visions of the naval ship on the water, like the destroyer ship. I had the bird's eye view, and then the scene shifted and there was an explosion over the water, but I couldn't see what was hit. So that was the very first vision that I wrote down. And I didn't, like I said at the time, I just wrote it down and I thought it was just my imagination. But then I saw, like, a few weeks later, we started sending ships out to Venezuela. So that kind of, like, you know, piqued my interest a bit, because I was like, wait a second, I just had a vision of these, just, this destroyer ship on the water, and there was an explosion. And I even said, if there's an explosion on the water, that's a little weird. And then it was like on the, I think it was the 1st or 2nd of September, it says the first US missile strikes happened on these alleged drug boats. And that's when they were like releasing the videos. So then I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then next thing I had was a drawing of a missile being launched at a naval ship. So I don't know if it's from a plane. I just saw a missile being launched and I assumed that's what it was. And then we kept doing drone strikes on boats near Venezuela. But then also we started having the Iran stuff, which I'll get to that later. But the next thing I had was September 20th. Like I said, I was being drawn to the sky. So I was looking at like planetary alignments, and something with Venus, I think it was Venus and Jupiter, that I was thinking like, well, hey, there's something going on with this. Maybe there's going to be some kind of peace agreement that'll happen, or some type of announcement of peace. And I like put a time frame of possibly when it would happen, and this was on September 20th, and I put 10/2, peace agreement will be made in October. Like I was doing, just an idea. And then on to the 29th of September, I saw Trump come out with this board of peace, this 20-point Gaza peace plan. So I was like, well, that's interesting, because that's close to the time frame that I was thinking about. And that was really weird. But the interesting thing with that too is, because I was so focused on this, I was thinking, that maybe this is the peace plan that they talk about biblically. But when I took a nap, I think later that day, and I heard "Until the Bear." It was either that day or it was a couple days after. I can't remember, because this was last year. I'll have to look at my notes. But I heard "Until the Bear." And I didn't understand what that meant, because, like I said, I'm a blank slate. I have never read the Bible, so I didn't really know anything about the Bible or anything historically for these regions. But a lot of people would assume like Russia is the bear. But I read that actually Iran was considered the bear for Persia in ancient biblical times. So that kind of ties in with my other things that I have going on here. So then on October 1st, I had another vision. I saw a jet shooting down another jet, and I didn't understand what that meant. And I also had heard "expand the searchable." Well, then I see that we have jets shooting down another jet in March, and then we also had, I think in April, there was that one with the pilot that was shot down, and they had to expand the search for this guy. So I was like, okay, well, that's a little weird. And then also October 4th, I had a vision of a man with a flag and a circle around him, and then the word "defendant." It was like a doodle. It was like a doodle sketch of this guy. And I thought it was really weird that I saw this like doodle sketch of him, and then I saw the word "defendant" that looks like it was being pulled from like a dictionary. So I didn't know what that meant at the time, and I was like, trying to figure out what this was, and I also heard Scandia, which that doesn't make any sense at all. But it makes sense because the night that I found out that we captured Maduro, we were coming back from somewhere, and we were traveling, and I saw this big sign that was for, I think it was for mini golf or something, that said Scandia. And then I was looking at my phone at the news, and I saw that we had captured Maduro. So it's like all of that stuff was almost like precognition stuff, I guess, maybe. Like, I don't know. It was really weird. And I also saw that with these boats explosions too, I had the word Clayton, and then that didn't make sense to me either why I heard Clayton, but then I found out he was the lead prosecutor for Maduro. So all of this stuff to me seems like it was kind of like pointing me to as like, this is like the beginning of something, like this is the starting point of something, which then after we did the Venezuela stuff, we go into Iran. So like I said, I don't know what everything means in the grand scheme of things, but it just seems very like unusual that I have all this stuff. But that's why I started paying more attention to what I was receiving in my dreams, because the Venezuela, the destroyer boat thing happened within like 2 or 3 weeks after I got it. So I started paying more and more attention to what I was getting. And then some of the stuff came quickly, and then some of it was months later from what I was finding. And I had another too. I think it was with the Artemis. I had like this announcer-like voice in my sleep saying going up a brilliant height and then flatlining in the sky. And I was like, that sounds like a rocket launch. And I didn't even know any of this stuff was going on with Artemis. I didn't know that they were doing the moon. They were going to go around the moon in, like, it was like, I think it was a month, and then they started postponing it. But I didn't even know about that. So it's almost like I was having these big events that I was like picking up, I guess, essentially. But the thing is that it's like I'm getting geopolitical stuff and biblical stuff at the same time, because I'm getting like retrocognition and I'm getting precognition. And then the precognition is more of like geopolitical stuff. But anyway, that's kind of how I have to explain this. And I know some people are like, oh, what makes you so special that you are getting this and no one else does? And I don't think I'm special. I'm not claiming I have all the answers. I think I've become more aware and attentive to things, that I'm just kind of like, hey, something's going on here. And I feel like other people can do this too. Like I've said in my other videos, that if you really try to pay attention when you sleep and when you wake up, like before you sleep and wake up, that there's things that you might catch that aren't from you, that are like maybe outside of you. So that's kind of all I want to say. And also I'm a blank slate too. I, like said, with my experience, I've never read the Bible. I never went to church, like went a handful of times maybe when I was a kid, never paid attention when I was there. I was like, 10 years old. And like I honestly can say I probably only went a total of like 8 times in my life. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm a blank slate. So this is compelling for me because I see a lot of people, I've talked about this before, talk about how, they get these messages and they're from God and all this stuff, and they say, God says this, and God wants me to tell you that, you're going to have wealth, and God's telling me that you're going to get through this. And I don't get stuff like that, but I also feel like there is confirmation bias, that if you are constantly absorbing something, if you're constantly in the Bible, you're constantly reading about the Bible, you're constantly thinking about the Bible, you're researching, everything is about the Bible, you're going to have that spill over into your subconscious, and you're going to have that spill over into your dreams. So that's why it's so weird for me, is because I didn't care to read the Bible. I never thought about the Bible. I never researched anything. I didn't even think of Christ at all. And now it's like every day I started getting these things that had me looking and then telling other people in my life that were like, hey, that's biblical, like that's in the Bible. So that's why I was like, okay, there's something going on here. So sometimes maybe the least likely person is the person that is chosen to be like a messenger. And I'm not saying I'm definitively a messenger, but I'm definitely not an interpreter either, because I don't know for sure what it means, but sometimes it happens that way. Maybe this will mean something to somebody else out here. So anyway, that's my video for today. So if you could just like and subscribe and drop a comment below, I'd appreciate it. Have a great day, guys.